A positive pregnancy test today is a moment of pure science. But what if your result came from sprinkling your urine on ancient grains of barley? What did the Egyptians truly believe about pregnancy and childbirth? You are about to journey into a world where magic and medicine were one, where fearsome hippo goddesses stood guard in the delivery room, and a simple sprouting seed could reveal a baby's fate. By the end, you will possess a complete understanding of the incredible system that guided Egyptian mothers from conception to cradle. We will uncover the startling science behind a 3,000-year-old pregnancy test and reveal why a dwarf god was a delivery room essential. What is the most surprising thing we still do today that connects us to these ancient parents? For an Egyptian woman hoping for a child, the journey began not in a doctor's office but in a temple. She would turn her prayers to Hathor, the great goddess of women, love, and beauty. More than just a divine figure, Hathor was a mother to all mothers, a source of life and joy. Women would offer her mirrors, beads, and sistrum rattles, their music a plea for her favor. They believed Hathor's divine essence could stir life within them, blessing their wombs and ensuring a healthy conception. Her presence was a comforting, powerful force at the very start of this profound journey. But once a pregnancy was confirmed, a different, far more unusual guardian stepped into the spotlight. This was Bes, the protector of the household and childbirth. His appearance was startling, a far cry from the majestic beauty of Hathor. He was depicted as a dwarf with a lion's mane, a protruding tongue, and bandy legs. This fearsome visage, however, was not meant to frighten the family, but to terrify the evil spirits that threatened a mother and her unborn child. You would find his image everywhere, carved into the headrests of beds, painted on walls, and even etched onto the ivory knives placed under the bed for protection. His grotesque features were a shield, a constant guardian watching over the most vulnerable moments of life. The Egyptians understood that creating and protecting life required a perfect balance, the gentle power of Hathor for creation and the fierce, watchful energy of Bes for safekeeping. This divine partnership wove the spiritual safety net that carried a woman from her first hopes of motherhood right up to the delivery room itself. And when the moment of birth finally arrived, the household protector Bes was joined by a truly formidable ally. This was Taweret, the great goddess of childbirth, a deity whose appearance was as terrifying as her purpose was pure. Imagine a standing hippopotamus, heavily pregnant, with the limbs of a lion and the back of a crocodile. Her name even meant the Great One. This fearsome combination was not a random monster, but a deliberate fusion of the most protective and powerful creatures the Egyptians knew. Her hippo body symbolized immense maternal strength. The lion limbs represented fierce courage, and the crocodile back was a final, impenetrable defense against any evil that dared approach from behind. Together, Bes and Taweret formed an unbeatable team. While Bes used his grotesque face to scare spirits away from the outside, Taweret used her raw, primal power to guard the mother and child within the sacred space of the birthing chamber. Their images were absolutely everywhere during a delivery. A woman in labor would often squat or kneel on bricks decorated with their figures, physically supported by their divine presence. Amulets carved from precious stones or molded from faience, depicting Bes's grimacing face or Taweret's full form, were tied around the mother's neck and wrists. These were not mere decorations, they were active shields charged with protective magic. Even the ivory knives placed under the bed, often carved with Bes, were believed to cut through malevolent forces just as they would cut physical flesh. The entire room was transformed into a spiritual fortress, a consecrated space where the ordinary world was locked out and only life-giving magic was allowed in. This divine duo created a bubble of safety where the mother could focus all her energy on the monumental task of bringing a new life into the world, shielded by the most powerful guardians ancient Egypt could conceive. But all of this spiritual protection was supported by a surprisingly practical medical system. One of our clearest windows into this world is the Kahun Gynecological Papyrus, a scroll of medical text that dates back nearly 4,000 years. This makes it one of the oldest surviving medical documents anywhere on Earth. It was essentially a practicing physician's guidebook, a detailed manual for diagnosing pregnancy, determining the health of the unborn child, and treating a whole range of gynecological ailments. Within its carefully inked hieratic script, we find a fascinating blend of what we would recognize as early science and potent magic working hand in hand. One of its most famous prescriptions is a method for confirming pregnancy and even predicting the baby's sex. The text instructs a woman to urinate daily on 2 separate bags, one filled with barley and the other with emmer wheat. If either bag sprouted, she was confirmed to be pregnant, but the diagnosis went even further. If the barley sprouted first, it meant she was carrying a boy. If the emmer wheat sprouted first, a girl was on the way. To the modern mind, this sounds like pure superstition, yet astonishingly, when researchers tested this ancient method, they found it had a real basis in observation. A pregnant woman's urine contains elevated levels of estrogen, which can indeed stimulate the growth of certain grains. While the gender prediction part lacks scientific backing, the core test worked better than any other method available for thousands of years. This was not the papyrus's only revelation. It contains remedies for everything from aches and pains to more serious conditions, often combining herbal poultices and mixtures with spoken incantations to deities like Hathor. A physical treatment was applied to the body, while a magical spell was recited to address the unseen spiritual cause of the illness. The Egyptian physicians saw no contradiction here. To them, the body was not just a collection of physical parts, but a vessel influenced by gods, spirits, and the forces of the universe. The Kahun Papyrus shows us a civilization that was meticulously observing the natural world, recording results, and building a practical medical tradition, all while firmly believing that a successful outcome required harmony between the physical and the divine. This famous test with barley and emmer wheat was far more than a simple ritual. A woman would urinate each day on 2 separate cloth bags, one filled with barley seeds and the other with emmer, an ancient type of wheat. The instructions were precise and the results were patiently awaited. If neither bag sprouted, it was concluded she was not with child. But if vibrant green shoots pushed through the fabric, the test was positive. Life was stirring within her, confirmed by the life sprouting from the grain. The method even ventured a guess at the baby's gender, predicting a boy for barley and a girl for emmer. Modern scientists who recreated this test found a fascinating kernel of truth. A pregnant woman's urine contains significantly higher levels of estrogen, a hormone that can, under the right conditions, act as a growth stimulant for plants. The test was not foolproof, but it was observant, a genuine biological reaction harnessed for diagnosis millennia before the discovery of hormones. This was not the only tool in the physician's kit. These ancient doctors were sharp observers of the human body, trained to look for subtle signs. They would carefully examine a woman's eyes, noting their brightness or any yellowing of the sclera, the whites. They studied the complexion of her skin, checking for a certain pallor or a particular radiance. They observed the condition of her breasts and noted any changes in her appetite or energy. All of these physical clues were pieces of a diagnostic puzzle. A physician might gently press on her limbs and abdomen, feeling for swelling or tenderness that could indicate the state of the pregnancy or point to other ailments. Every detail, from the sparkle in her eyes to the color of her skin, was a potential message from the body, a symptom to be interpreted within their unique framework where a physical sign and a spiritual influence were often one and the same. A woman's own body was considered a living text filled with clues about the child she carried. While the barley and emmer test offered one prediction, people looked for more immediate signs in her daily life. The way a mother carried her baby bump was thought to be highly revealing. If the child was carried high and the pregnancy was prominently visible from the front, many believed it indicated a girl. A lower, more compact carry that widened the mother's hips was often interpreted as a sign of a boy. Her food cravings were also seen as meaningful messages. A desire for sweet fruits and certain breads might point toward a daughter, while a craving for salty or meaty foods was thought to signal a son. Even the condition of the mother's face was scrutinized. Some traditions held that if a woman's complexion became radiant and clear, she was carrying a boy, while if her skin broke out, she might be expecting a girl, based on the whimsical idea that a daughter was stealing her mother's beauty. These beliefs wove the mystery of pregnancy into the fabric of everyday existence, turning a mother's walk and her meals into a source of constant speculation. But why was knowing the sex so important? The answer lies deep in the structure of Egyptian society. In a culture where family lineage and the inheritance of property were paramount, a male heir was often the desired outcome, especially for royal and elite families. A son would carry on his father's name, maintain the family's funerary cult to ensure eternal offerings, and inherit the land and titles that secured the family's future for generations. While daughters were loved and valued, the societal pressure to produce a male child was a real and powerful force. This desire made the various predictive methods more than just curious games. They were attempts to peer into the future and prepare for the social and economic realities that a new child would bring. The entire community, from the physician with his grain test to the neighbor noting how the mother walked, was engaged in reading the signs, all hoping to answer one of life's oldest questions long before the moment of birth itself. These powerful beliefs were made manifest in the jewelry a woman wore every single day. Her body became a gallery of divine protection, adorned with amulets specifically chosen to shield her and her unborn child from harm. Among the most vital was the Sa amulet, a simple yet profound symbol shaped like a protective papyrus life preserver used on boats. Its very form spoke of safety and buoyancy, a promise to keep the mother afloat against the treacherous currents of evil forces. She would wear this charm on a necklace or a bracelet, a constant, tangible reminder that she was guarded. Another essential piece was the tayet, often called the Isis knot. This intricately shaped amulet, resembling a looped cloth with downturned ends, was deeply tied to the magic of the goddess Isis herself. Legend told that it was made from the blood of Isis, granting it immense power. It represented the magical protection Isis wielded to resurrect her husband Osiris and safeguard her son Horus, making it the perfect emblem for a mother seeking that same divine safeguarding for her own child. The materials these amulets were made from were not chosen for beauty alone. They were crafted from substances believed to hold their own innate magic. Faience, a brilliant blue-green ceramic, was favored not just for its lovely color, but because it symbolized life, fertility, and the life-giving waters of the Nile. Carnelian, a deep red stone, was thought to embody the power of blood and life, a vibrant shield against the forces of decay and death. A pregnant woman's ensemble was a carefully constructed armor. A strand of faience beads with a central Sa amulet might rest against her chest, while a bracelet of carnelian tayet knots encircled her wrist. With every movement, these charms would softly clink together, their sound a whispered spell, their weight a physical assurance. This was not mere accessorizing, it was an active and continuous ritual. Each amulet was a battery of protective energy, its specific shape, material, and divine connection combining to create an invisible fortress around her, ensuring that from the moment she dressed in the morning until she slept at night, she was never truly alone or undefended. Despite the powerful magic and vigilant deities, childbirth remained a profoundly dangerous passage. For every mother in ancient Egypt, this was a time of hope shadowed by genuine fear. The statistics from the ancient world are sobering, with both maternal and infant mortality rates reaching levels that are almost unimaginable today. A woman faced a host of potential complications with very few medical solutions. Hemorrhage, infection, and obstructed labor were constant, deadly threats. Without modern surgical techniques like cesarean sections or the understanding of germs and antibiotics, even a minor problem during delivery could swiftly turn fatal. The physicians, for all their knowledge of herbs and spells, had no way to stop a severe bleed or treat a rampant infection once it set in. This ever-present risk made the spiritual preparations not just a matter of tradition, but a desperate necessity for survival. The loss of a newborn was also a tragically common experience. Estimates suggest that perhaps a third of all children did not survive their first year, succumbing to dehydration from common illnesses, birth defects, or simply the fragile nature of life in an era before modern medicine. This harsh reality fundamentally shaped the Egyptian worldview. Why do you think they surrounded mothers with such an intense concentration of protective magic? It was because their physical tools were so limited. They could not sterilize instruments or perform life-saving surgery, but they could summon the fiercest gods. They could not guarantee a child would live, but they could carve 100 amulets to try and force fate in their favor. Every statue of Bes, every image of Taweret on the birth bricks, every protective knife under the bed was a plea against the terrifying odds. This context makes their beliefs not superstitious but deeply rational. When the physical world offers so few guarantees, you pour all your hope, all your effort into the spiritual one. The elaborate rituals were a way to exert control in a situation where human control was desperately limited, creating a shield of faith where a medical one did not yet exist. Into this sacred and perilous space stepped the midwife, the true anchor of the entire process. She was far more than a medical attendant. She was a master of both body and spirit, a community elder whose experience was the most valuable asset in the room. Her arrival brought a palpable sense of order and calm, her hands carrying the accumulated wisdom of countless generations. This woman knew every herbal remedy, every comforting position for labor, and every potent prayer to the goddesses Taweret and Hathor. She was the bridge between the divine protection summoned by the amulets and the physical reality of bringing a child into the world. Her very presence was a reassurance that the mother was not alone, guided by a seasoned expert who had navigated this dangerous passage many times before. Her toolkit was a blend of the practical and the magical. She likely carried a special stool or bricks for the mother to squat upon, facilitating gravity to aid the birth. She had clean linens, oils for massage, and carefully prepared herbal infusions to manage pain and stimulate contractions. An ivory knife, perhaps carved with the image of Bes, was on hand not for surgery, but to ritually cut the umbilical cord, an act that severed the child from its mother's body and welcomed it as a separate being. With each stage of labor, the midwife would recite specific incantations, calling upon the gods to strengthen the mother and shield the newborn from any lurking demons. Her voice was a steady rhythm, a spell in itself, weaving a tapestry of comfort and power around the laboring woman. This knowledge was not written in formal papyri, but was passed orally from mother to daughter, from experienced midwife to her apprentice, preserving a living library of women's medicine. She was the central human figure, the conductor of this intense symphony of pain, magic, and ultimate joy, holding the space for a miracle to happen against all odds. The centerpiece of this sacred space was the birthing brick itself, a powerful object known as a mescanet. These were not simple, plain bricks, but often beautifully decorated slabs or stools upon which a woman would crouch or kneel during the final stages of labor. This physical act of positioning herself upon the mescanet was deeply symbolic, connecting her directly to the goddess of the same name. Mescanet was not just a protector of the moment, she was the divine force who presided over destiny itself. It was believed that at the very instant a child was born onto these bricks, the goddess would decree the newborn's entire future, the length of their life, their profession, and their ultimate fate. The bricks were, in essence, a physical portal where a human life was ushered into the world, and its divine blueprint was simultaneously sealed. The room itself was meticulously prepared to be a fortress of purity and power. Before the labor began, it would be thoroughly cleansed and purified, with every surface scrubbed and blessed. The air would be thick with the fragrant smoke of burning incense, a practical measure to mask odors, but more importantly, a spiritual one to please the gods and drive away any malevolent spirits that might be drawn to the vulnerability of birth. The walls were adorned with images of the protective deities, creating a circle of divine witnesses. Fierce Hathor and grimacing Bes would be depicted on the bricks on the walls and even on the linens, their painted eyes watching over the mother. This was not merely a room, it was a consecrated arena. Every element, from the sacred bricks beneath her feet to the incense clouding the air, was designed to separate this profound event from the mundane world outside. Here, surrounded by the watchful eyes of gods and the steady hands of the midwife, a woman performed the most monumental act of her life, bringing a new soul onto the physical plane while the goddess Meskenet quietly wrote its destiny in the stars. The air in the birthing chamber hummed with more than just incense and pain. It vibrated with the power of spoken words. As the mother labored upon the sacred Meskenet bricks, the midwife's voice would rise in a rhythmic chant, reciting spells of immense antiquity and power. These were not casual prayers, but precise incantations, a verbal technology designed to manipulate the very forces of creation. One of the most stunning examples comes from the Kahun Papyrus, a text that preserves a story of a miraculous birth from the age of the pyramids. In the tale, the mother of 3 future kings struggles in a difficult labor. The sun god Ra takes pity and commands a group of deities to assist her. The great goddesses Isis and Nephthys go to her side, while Hecate, the frog goddess of birth, swiftly accelerates the delivery. The papyrus describes them using their divine words not just to comfort but to command. They speak spells to position the child, to ease the mother's suffering, and to bring the baby forth safely and quickly. This was the model for every human midwife. She was channeling these divine assistants, using their same sacred language to enact their power in a mortal room. A typical spell might directly address the unborn child, urging it to turn and descend. It could speak to the mother's body, commanding it to open and release its precious burden. The words were a form of spiritual lubrication, easing the metaphysical friction that could cause a physical obstruction. But this spoken magic also had a defensive purpose, standing guard against a specific and terrifying threat. The greatest danger was not a medical complication, but the serpent demon Apep, the embodiment of chaos and darkness. The Egyptians believed Apep was eternally trying to devour the sun god Ra as he journeyed through the sky. This cosmic battle between order and chaos was mirrored in the microcosm of the birth chamber. A difficult labor, a sudden stillness, a turn for the worse, these were seen as the work of Apep, attempting to snuff out a new life just as he tried to extinguish the sun. So the midwife's spells were also weapons. She would recite incantations that invoked the protective power of Ra himself, creating a shield of solar fire around the mother and child. She might call upon the cat goddess Bastet to slash at the serpent with her claws, or use words that mimicked the triumphant shouts of the gods when they defeated Apep each night. Every painful contraction was not just a physical event, but a skirmish in this eternal war. The rhythmic chanting was a drumbeat of order against the formless silence of chaos, a sonic fortress ensuring that the light of a new life would always win. Every word spoken by the midwife was a deliberate act of creation, powered by a force the Egyptians called Heka. This was not a vague superstition, but the very fabric of the universe, the raw energy of creation that the gods used to bring the world into being. Heka was the divine magic that existed before the gods themselves, a power so fundamental it was considered a natural law. To understand why an amulet or a spoken spell was as real as a medicinal herb, you must grasp that Heka was the operating system of their reality. It was the invisible substance that connected words, images, and intentions to tangible outcomes in the physical world. When a physician recited a spell from the Kahun Papyrus, he was not merely hoping for a result. He was tapping directly into this cosmic current, using words of power to command the body to heal. When a mother wore a Tayat amulet, she was not just carrying a lucky charm. She was plugging into the specific Heka of the goddess Isis, drawing upon the same creative force that resurrected a god and protected a divine child. This belief system made their actions completely rational. A spell was a tool as practical as a knife. An incantation to ease labor was seen as manipulating the same fundamental energy that the goddess Hecate used to quicken birth. The grotesque face of Bes was not just a scary image, it was a concentrated node of protective Heka, its power amplified by the specific form it took. This is why every ritual, from the sprinkling of urine on grain to the carving of a demon-slaying knife, was performed with such precision. They were not performing empty ceremonies. They were skilled technicians of an unseen dimension, actively engaging with Heka to build a world of safety and order against the ever-lurking chaos. Their entire approach to pregnancy and birth was a grand, continuous project of applied magic, where every action was meant to shape reality itself. This invisible shield of Heka was supported by a very practical kind of magic, the daily nourishment that built a child from the inside out. An Egyptian mother's diet was considered a direct ingredient in her baby's future health and strength. Medical texts like the Ebers Papyrus offered specific dietary advice, prescribing certain foods to fortify the mother and strictly forbidding others believed to cause physical deformities or complications. This was not just about eating well, it was about consuming the right kinds of elemental power. Certain foods were revered as almost medicinal. Sweet, energy-rich dates were a staple, valued for their ability to build the mother's strength and ease the pains of pregnancy. Honey, a rare and precious commodity, was more than a sweetener. It was a potent substance believed to have healing and purifying properties, often mixed into herbal infusions. Herbs like fenugreek were consumed to promote a healthy flow of milk after the birth, ensuring the newborn would thrive. But for every food prescribed, there was another strictly avoided. Some texts warned pregnant women against eating certain types of fish, not for fear of mercury as we might today, but because they were thought to originate from the chaotic waters of Nun and could introduce disorder into the orderly process of fetal development. The smell of roasting gazelle meat was also considered potentially dangerous, with some beliefs suggesting its strong aroma could disturb the delicate balance of the womb. Every meal was a conscious act of creation. A sip of milk was for the child's bones, a piece of bread for its flesh, and a handful of dates for its vitality. The mother understood she was quite literally building a human being, and so her plate became a sacred space where the health of two lives was carefully curated, bite by deliberate bite. The sacred words and nourishing foods were not the only channels for divine messages. In the quiet of the night, a deeper layer of communication unfolded through the world of dreams. For the Egyptians, dreams were not random neural firings, they were potent prophetic visions. A dream was a direct message from the gods or a glimpse into the future written on a scroll of the mind. A pregnant woman's dreams were considered especially significant, a privileged window into the unseen world where her child's destiny was being shaped. Every strange symbol, every unsettling encounter, and every joyful vision was a piece of a divine puzzle. A dream of a soaring falcon might be interpreted as a sign that her son would possess the keen sight and noble bearing of Horus, perhaps destined for leadership. A vision of a lush, overflowing Nile could foretell a child blessed with abundance and vitality. Conversely, a nightmare featuring chaotic waters or shadowy figures might be seen as a warning of a spiritual threat, a sign that extra amulets or prayers were needed to protect the vulnerable fetus. These nightly visions were far too important to be left to personal interpretation. A woman would share her dreams with a priest or a community wise woman, individuals trained in the complex art of oneromancy, the interpretation of dreams. These specialists acted as spiritual translators, consulting their knowledge of symbols and divine associations to decode the hidden message. They might prescribe a specific offering to a particular god to thank them for a positive omen or to appease them after a troubling one. This process wove the mystery of the unborn child even more tightly into the fabric of daily life. A simple dream about a cat could lead to an offering at the temple of Bastet. A vision of a scribe's palette might inspire the father to dedicate a writing set to the god Thoth. The pregnancy was not just a private, biological event, but a public spiritual journey where the entire community, guided by the words of the gods themselves in dreams, participated in anticipating and preparing for the new soul about to arrive. Even as the birthing bricks were put away, the presence of Hathor remained as vital as air. The Golden One, whose favor was first sought for conception, now transformed into a divine wet nurse, her protection extending to the newborn's most fundamental need, nourishment. New mothers would pray to her for a plentiful supply of milk, offering small blue faience beads in her likeness, their cool, smooth surfaces echoing the life-giving waters she represented. They believed Hathor's own divine milk, the very substance of the stars, could flow through them to strengthen their child. A successful breastfeeding was seen not just as a biological function, but as a direct blessing from the goddess, a sacred transfer of her celestial strength and vitality to the fragile mortal infant. Her image was a constant comfort, a reminder that the same power that stirred life in the womb now sustained it in the cradle. This continuous thread of devotion reveals a profound understanding of motherhood as a single, unbroken journey. From the first hopeful prayer for a child to the daily ritual of nursing, a woman was never alone. Hathor was the eternal mother, a celestial counterpart whose divine grace enveloped both parent and child, ensuring that the miracle of creation was followed by the enduring gift of care. The moment of birth did not end the sacred rituals, for a final, vital element remained. This was the afterbirth, a substance modern medicine discards, but which the Egyptians viewed with profound reverence. They saw it not as medical waste, but as a powerful spiritual entity in its own right. In their understanding, the placenta was the child's divine twin, a protective sibling born at the same moment. This belief transformed its disposal into a ceremony of immense importance. The afterbirth was carefully washed, anointed with oils, and wrapped in clean linen, much like a miniature mummy. It was then buried in a special place, often within the family home's courtyard or in a dedicated pit, to keep its protective influence close. This act sealed a spiritual bond, tethering this guardian twin to the child for life. The logic behind this practice connects to one of the most fundamental concepts in Egyptian spirituality, the Ka. The Ka was a person's vital life force, their spiritual double that was created at the same moment as the physical body. It needed sustenance, offerings of food and drink to survive in the afterlife. Many scholars believe the placenta was seen as the physical anchor for this very Ka. It was the part of the self that was not the body, yet was inextricably linked to it from conception. By preserving and honoring the afterbirth, the family was, in effect, safeguarding the child's own life force. They were ensuring its Ka had a stable home base in the physical world, a twin that remained rooted in the land of the living even as the child grew and ventured forth. This small, bundled package buried by the hearth was not a forgotten relic, but a silent guardian, a piece of the child's own soul kept safe to ensure they would always have a connection to the source of their own vitality. Yet this profound connection came with a necessary period of withdrawal. Following the intensity of birth, the mother and her newborn entered a state of seclusion, a sacred timeout from the world that could last for up to 14 days. This was not merely a time for physical recovery, it was a crucial process of ceremonial purification. The entire birthing event, while a miracle, was also viewed as a state of spiritual vulnerability, a liminal passage that required a formal return to ritual cleanliness before rejoining the community. The room that had been a fortress for labor now became a sanctuary for cleansing. At the heart of this purification was a remarkable substance, natron salt. This was not ordinary table salt, but a special mineral compound harvested from the dry lake beds along the Nile. The Egyptians used natron in the mummification of their dead to desiccate and preserve the body for eternity, but here, for the living, it served a parallel purpose of drawing out impurity. The new mother would wash with water mixed with natron, its drying, antiseptic properties cleaning her physically, while its potent symbolism scrubbed her spirit clean of the spiritual residue of childbirth. This ritual bath was a rebirth for the mother herself, a transition from the raw, powerful state of bringing forth life back into the balanced order of daily existence. Alongside these cleansing rituals came gestures of profound gratitude. With the immediate danger past, the family would make offerings to the very gods who had stood guard. Small statues of Hathor or Bes might be placed in a household shrine alongside bowls of food, drink, and the finest incense. These were not desperate pleas for help anymore, but thankful gifts, a way of settling a sacred debt. They were acknowledging the divine assistance that had seen them through the perilous journey, ensuring the continued favor of these powerful beings for the long road of parenting that lay ahead. This quiet, cloistered period was therefore a time of dual healing, where the mother's body rested and her spirit was restored, all within the comforting certainty that the gods had been properly thanked and the household was once again in a state of harmonious balance. A name in ancient Egypt was a living piece of the soul itself. This was not a simple label for identification, but a vital component of a person's identity, a sound that contained their very essence and destiny. To speak a name was to summon the person, to acknowledge their existence in both this world and the next. This profound belief meant that the act of naming a newborn was one of the most significant magical acts a family could perform. It was a ceremony that wove the child into the cosmic order, granting them a place not only in their family line but within the protective embrace of the gods. A name was the first and most enduring amulet a person would ever possess. Many children received names that were direct prayers or statements of devotion, connecting them to a specific deity from their very first breath. A boy might be called Tahotep, meaning Ta is satisfied. A girl could be named Nefertari, beautiful companion, for the goddess Hathor, or a child might be known as Amenemhat, Amun is at the forefront. These theophoric names were a powerful form of spiritual insurance. By embedding a god's name within the child's own, the family was placing the newborn under that deity's direct and permanent patronage. Every time the child's name was spoken, it was an invocation, a constant, low-level prayer that reinforced the divine shield around them. The choice of name was a careful deliberation, often reflecting the circumstances of birth or the parent's deepest hopes. A mother who had prayed long for a child might name her son Jedepher, meaning enduring like Re, hoping for his strength and longevity. A child born after a series of losses might be called Murray, meaning the beloved, as a protective charm against further tragedy. The name was believed to actively shape the child's character and future path. To name a child Nebmat, Lord of Truth, was to set an expectation of righteousness, willing that quality into being. This was why the naming ceremony was a sacred event, often conducted in the presence of a priest or the family elders. As the chosen name was spoken aloud for the first time, officially introducing the new soul to the community and the cosmos, it was believed that the child's destiny clicked into place, their life's path now set upon the rails of the powerful words their parents had so carefully chosen. But this carefully woven destiny was perpetually under threat from forces of pure malevolence. The most feared of these was the demoness Lamashtu, a creature of nightmares who specifically targeted newborns and their mothers. Described as having a lion's head, a donkey's teeth, and taloned hands, she was the embodiment of every parent's deepest dread. Her sole purpose was to snatch infants from their cradles, to drink their blood and gnaw on their bones. The fear of Lamashtu was so pervasive it transcended Egypt, appearing in the myths of neighboring Mesopotamia, a shared terror across the ancient world. Her presence explained the inexplicable, the sudden, quiet death of a seemingly healthy baby. When a child perished without clear cause, the whispered name was Lamashtu. This was the constant, chilling background noise to all the joy of a new birth, the reason the spiritual shields had to remain permanently raised. The war for a child's life did not end with a successful delivery. It simply entered a new, more stealthy phase. How do you protect a helpless infant from a monster that no physical wall can stop? The answer was a multi-layered defense system of profound ingenuity. The first and most visible layer was the continued use of amulets, now specifically tailored for the baby. A tiny ivory dagger, a miniature version of the ones placed under the mother's bed, might be tied to the child's crib, its sharp point symbolically aimed at any approaching evil. Small figures of Bes, his tongue still protruding in a permanent grimace, were sewn into the infant's linen wraps or hung above the cradle as a first line of defense. But the protection went far beyond carved images. The Egyptians deployed powerful substances from their own kitchens and gardens as spiritual weapons. Garlic and onions, with their potent, pungent odors, were not just food, they were considered powerful apotropaic agents. Their strong smell was believed to be physically repulsive to evil spirits. Cloves of garlic were strung together and hung in doorways and windows, creating a fragrant barrier that demons were thought to be too fastidious to cross. Slices of onion might be placed near the baby's head, their sharp aroma creating an invisible, protective cloud around the child's most vulnerable form. This was a world where a scent could be a shield, where a common vegetable became a component in a magical security system. The final, most active layer of defense was the spoken spell. Just as the midwife had chanted during labor, the mother or a household priest would recite specific incantations designed to bind Lamashtu and her kind. These spells often took the form of direct commands, ordering the demoness to leave, to go back to the desolate places she came from. One might invoke the power of the sun god Ra, whose pure light could scorch creatures of darkness, saying, "Back, Lamashtu." The eye of Horus is upon this child, and its blaze will blind you. Another might use trickery, claiming the baby was not a human infant at all, but a young animal or even a lump of clay, something worthless and unappealing to a demonic palate. Every aspect of the infant's environment was therefore weaponized. The air was filled with protective smells, the cradle was adorned with threatening symbols, and the very silence was punctuated by words of power. This was not paranoia, it was a logical, comprehensive strategy for safeguarding the most precious and vulnerable member of the family, in a universe where invisible predators were a confirmed and terrifying reality. While the Kahun Papyrus gave us a glimpse into early diagnosis, the Berlin Papyrus reveals a stunning evolution in medical thought. Dated several centuries later, this text moves beyond simple tests into the realm of complex treatments, showcasing a medical system that was actively learning and refining its methods. Where the Kahun text often presents symptoms and a single remedy, the Berlin Papyrus reads like a sophisticated manual, offering multiple treatment options for a single condition and demonstrating a deeper understanding of the body's complexities. For a woman suffering from a difficult pregnancy, this document could have meant the difference between life and death. One remarkable entry details a treatment for severe cramping and bleeding, a terrifying complication. Instead of a single spell or poultice, the papyrus prescribes a multi-step regimen. It begins with a herbal suppository made from acacia leaves and honey to soothe internal inflammation, followed by a potion of willow bark and coriander to be drunk for pain relief. Modern analysis shows that willow bark contains salicin, a natural chemical precursor to aspirin, proving the Egyptians had identified plants with genuine analgesic properties through centuries of careful observation. This is not just magic, this is pharmacology in its infancy. The text then instructs the physician to prepare a special incense blend of frankincense and myrrh to purify the air around the patient, addressing the spiritual atmosphere of sickness while the physical remedies took effect. This layered approach reveals a medical mindset that was both pragmatic and holistic. They were not merely throwing remedies at a problem, they were developing structured protocols, attacking an ailment from multiple angles with treatments that we now know had real biochemical effects. The progression from the simpler prescriptions of Kahun to the advanced, multi-pronged strategies of the Berlin Papyrus paints a picture of a living, breathing scientific tradition. These physicians were not static guardians of ancient lore. They were innovators, carefully recording what worked, discarding what failed, and steadily building a more effective art of healing for the mothers of their civilization. These intimate prayers for a child found physical form in small, powerful objects kept within the home. Among the most personal of these artifacts were the fertility figurines, beautifully crafted statuettes often carved from ivory, wood, or molded from terracotta. These were not crude idols, but elegant, symbolic representations of the female form, typically depicting a nude woman lying on a bed. Her body was sculpted with pronounced, full curves, wide hips, and ample breasts, all idealized features that visually shouted health, life, and the capacity for childbearing. She was a three-dimensional prayer, a physical focus for a woman's deepest hopes. A woman yearning for a child would keep such a figurine in her household shrine, perhaps beside a small statue of Hathor. Each day, she might anoint it with a drop of precious oil or place a tiny offering of food before it. She would touch its smooth, cool surface, tracing the lines of the body she wished to emulate, using this tangible object to channel her intention and desire directly to the divine. The act was a form of sympathetic magic, a belief that by interacting with this symbol of perfect fertility, she could awaken that same potential within her own body. The figurine was more than a good luck charm. It was a tool for visualization and empowerment, a private, daily ritual that helped manifest her dream of motherhood into reality. These small statues connected the deeply personal journey of conception to the vast cosmic power of the gods, making every household a temple and every hopeful mother her own high priestess. A successful birth did more than bring a new life into the world. It fundamentally reshaped a mother's own identity. For every Egyptian woman, from the farmer's wife to the queen on her throne, the arrival of a child, particularly a son, was a powerful social achievement. It cemented her value, her security, and her legacy in a society built on lineage. But the experience of this transformation was a world apart depending on where you stood. Imagine a common woman, a farmer's wife in a small mud brick house along the Nile. Her pregnancy was a time of hope shadowed by relentless physical labor. She would have worked in the fields, drawn water, and ground grain right up until her labor pains began. A successful delivery, overseen by a local midwife, brought immense personal joy and the deep respect of her family and neighbors. But the birth of a son was a particular triumph. It meant her husband's name would continue, their family's claim to their plot of land would be secure for another generation, and she would have a son to care for her in her old age. Her status was elevated from a wife to a mother, the vital source of the family's future. Now shift your gaze to the royal court. For a queen like the powerful Ti, wife of Amenhotep III, or the famed Cleopatra VII, pregnancy was a matter of state security. Their wombs were not just a personal concern, but the vessel for a potential dynasty. A royal birth was a public spectacle, surrounded by priests, physicians, and political attendants. The pressure to produce a male heir was immense, a political imperative that could determine the stability of the entire kingdom. Success meant everything. A queen who bore a pharaoh secured her power for life, often becoming a co-ruler and a goddess in her own right. Her influence would extend far beyond the nursery, shaping foreign policy and temple construction. For a common woman, a son secured the family field. For a queen, a son secured the throne of Egypt itself. This fundamental difference in scale, however, could not erase a shared reality. In both the dusty village and the gleaming palace, a woman's ability to bring forth life was her ultimate source of authority. It was the key that unlocked social standing, economic stability, and a form of immortality through her children. A childless woman, no matter how noble, faced a precarious future, often sidelined or replaced. But a mother, especially the mother of a son, was woven permanently into the fabric of a community, her name remembered and her presence respected. Her body had done the most important work of all, ensuring that life, and with it culture, law, and memory, would flow unbroken into the future. The powerful ideas that protected mothers along the Nile did not remain confined to its banks. Egyptian beliefs about pregnancy and childbirth rippled outward, profoundly influencing their neighbors across the Mediterranean. The Greeks, who had extensive contact with Egypt, saw clear parallels between their own pantheon and the gods who guarded the delivery room. Their goddess of childbirth, Eileithyia, shared a striking resemblance in function to the Egyptian Hecate. Both were divine midwives summoned to ease labor pains and ensure a safe delivery. The Greeks even adopted the practice of offering small terracotta figurines of pregnant women and newborns at healing sanctuaries, a direct echo of the Egyptian use of fertility statuettes in household shrines. This was not mere coincidence, but a clear cultural exchange where the core concept of a specialized, assisting birth goddess traveled from one civilization to another, adapting to a new pantheon but retaining its essential, life-giving purpose. The Romans, who absorbed so much from the Greeks, continued this thread, venerating their own goddesses like Lucina, who safeguarded women in labor. Just as an Egyptian woman prayed to Taweret, a Roman mother might invoke Lucina's protection, a spiritual lineage that can be traced back to the fierce hippopotamus goddess on the Nile. Even their medical practices show this deep influence. The famed Greek physician Hippocrates, often called the father of Western medicine, developed theories about the female body and its humors that bear the unmistakable imprint of earlier Egyptian observations. His writings on diagnosing pregnancy through physical signs, like the condition of a woman's eyes and skin, read like a more formalized version of the diagnostic checks an Egyptian physician would have performed. The Roman encyclopedist Pliny the Elder, in his massive natural history, recorded countless folk remedies for fertility and childbirth that mirror the herbal knowledge found in the Kahun and Bes papyri. This was not a one-way street, but a slow, steady diffusion of knowledge. The Egyptian understanding of the body as a landscape influenced by both physical and spiritual forces provided a foundational framework that other ancient cultures built upon, adapted, and made their own. The amulets changed their shapes, the gods received new names, but the underlying desire to protect the miracle of birth with every tool available, from magic to medicine, remained a constant human endeavor, its earliest and most elaborate blueprint drawn in the sands of Egypt. These ancient rituals are not as distant as they seem. Look at a modern parent tying a small, polished hazel twig to their baby's stroller as a teething charm, or hanging a tiny silver bell to ward off bad energy. These are our culture's version of the Sa amulet and the ivory knife, tangible objects imbued with a hope for protection that transcends millennia. We may call them superstitions now, but the impulse is identical: to create a physical shield for a vulnerable child using the symbolic power of an object. The careful diets of Egyptian mothers also find a direct parallel in today's pregnancy advice. While we now have scientific reasons to avoid soft cheeses and raw fish, the underlying principle remains the same, that a mother's consumption directly builds her baby's body. And just like the Egyptian woman who might have craved dates for strength, A modern mother might be told to eat spinach for iron or walnuts for brain development, each culture using the best knowledge available to guide a mother's hand at the dinner table. But perhaps the most profound echo is the enduring role of the midwife. In an age of advanced hospital births, the resurgence of midwifery is a testament to the same human need that the Egyptians understood so well. A midwife today, much like her ancient counterpart, is more than a medical professional. She is a guide, a source of emotional strength, and a holder of sacred space. She provides continuous, hands-on care that blends technical skill with intuitive support, recognizing that birth is not merely a clinical procedure but a profound life passage. The modern midwife's toolkit may include a fetal monitor instead of birth bricks, but her essential role as a master of both body and spirit, an anchor in the storm of labor, connects her directly to the wise women who once chanted spells to Hecate in the flickering torchlight of a Nile-side home. These threads tie us to the past in a deeply personal way, revealing that our deepest instincts to protect, nourish, and guide new life are part of a human tradition stretching back thousands of years. From the sacred barley test to the fierce gaze of Taweret, this entire journey reveals a civilization that saw no boundary between the physical and the spiritual. Every step from conception to cradle was guided by a profound triad of magic, medicine, and unshakable faith. They meticulously observed the natural world, developing medical practices that were astonishingly advanced for their time, while simultaneously building a spiritual fortress of amulets, incantations, and gods to protect what their science could not yet guarantee. This was not a culture of simple superstition, but one of profound investment in life itself. Their elaborate rituals were a testament to the immense value they placed on family, on the continuation of lineage, and on the sacred act of bringing a new soul into their carefully ordered universe. They channeled the raw power of creation, Heka, through every spoken spell and carved charm, demonstrating a unified worldview where the divine was a practical, accessible force in the most intimate human experiences. This incredible system shows us a people who met the terrifying uncertainties of childbirth not with resignation, but with creativity, courage, and a relentless will to defend the future. Their legacy is a powerful reminder of the lengths to which humanity will go to welcome and protect new life. We would love to hear which part of this ancient journey resonated most with you. Was it the surprisingly effective pregnancy test, the fearsome guardians Bes and Taweret, or the profound belief in a child's divine twin? Share your most fascinating discovery in the comments below, and subscribe to keep unraveling the deepest mysteries of the ancient world with us.